Hello and welcome to another video by myself, Chris, from Sorare on the Budget. Today I'm going to be taking a little look at my scouting methods again. I've previously done one of these videos, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago, maybe even longer to be perfectly honest. But I've had a lot of new subscribers, things like that. And so there's obviously more and more users coming on Sorare all the time. So I just thought this was probably a good time to revisit the very basics of Sorare. I've obviously gone over in the last video looking at gallery reviews. This time round, I'm going to take a little bit of a more in-depth look as such at my scouting and what I do, how I do it, and sites I use, and as it says on here, the DYOR mantra, which is do your own research. Regardless if somebody puts up a player and they look like an absolute world beater, there could be ulterior reasons that they're putting them up. They might be sitting holding 5 or 6 of them, hoping that somebody comes along and snaps them up by recommending those cards. It could be that they've missed something. I've seen it recently where somebody had completely got a card completely out of left field. Was saying they were still on loan, they were going to someplace else, and yada yada yada. When none of that was true. So this will give hopefully a little bit more perspective on what I think people should be looking at when they're scouting. Now, this is purely what I do, but you could apply this to low-end limiteds, high-end limiteds, low-end rares, high-end rares, super rares. Uniques are probably slightly more difficult because pricing a unique card and even the super rares is quite difficult. There's no, because there's such a low supply of them, it's difficult to really put that into perspective. So I'm going to switch over to my browser here. So at the moment, I've got my Sorare page open on my club. There are obviously ways that you can search in Sorare now, which we didn't really have before. More and more, these are coming along in terms of being able to actually search on the market for certain things. So if I go into manager sales, for example, this, if you're brand new to Sorare, I'm gonna speak as if somebody's brand new, hopefully. If you're looking to buy players from another manager, you go into the manager sales section. And this is where you can put in offers to other managers. This is where you can, just ultimately just buy cards outright. Sorare did put an option on here now where they're kind of bundled. All the players of the same type are now bundled together. So you're not seeing 20 Zahur Fidal cards. Completely butchered his name. I apologize, Mr. Fidal. But it declutters the market a little bit. It makes it a little bit easier to see. It shows you the cheapest price that card's available for as well. So there are lots of search options here. You can now search by average scores for last 15s and last 5. Obviously, that's important for your capped modes. Obviously, you can search by price. You can search by team. You can search by, what percentage of games they've played, which is great because these are things that didn't exist up until a few months ago. And to be honest, a lot of these have started to exist because of the kind of search facilities where you've got on like SorareData, which I'll come to in a moment, because that's generally what I use on there. But there are so many things you can now search by, narrow down a search stream to find out, who has a last 15 under 50, but for the last 5 have scored over 55 and you want them under a certain price. You can now do all this on the Sorare website, which is great. It does promote a lot more, ability to be able to search. And obviously you could do it by scarcity and things like that. The main one that I use for that is SorareData, and that's probably because I'm a creature of habit. On SorareData, you do have the option for your player finders. Now, I am well aware that the basic one doesn't have the full search facility on here. I do subscribe on SorareData. Whether I continue doing that now that Sorare has become a little bit more user-friendly and a bit easier for these search options, I may well revisit that and how I do that going forward. But this is where I would go. I would go into Scout and then go to Player Finder. Players, each of these little drop downs has different options. You can create your watch list, so you can only search them within your watch list. This is a good one. Again, it's also on the Sorare website. The Sorare website, I believe, only gives you the next game week. On here, you can actually search for multiple upcoming game weeks, as you can see here. So if you want to look for the start of the European season, you might want to just click on 395, which I'll do because I'm going to do an actual search. If you were looking for, then you could look for a certain player, certain owners. If you want a particular position, so this generally is what you're looking for, isn't it? If you're coming up to a game week and you're a midfielder short because somebody's out injured, or you're just in the market because you've got some budget and you want to buy a new one. So I'm going to just look at a midfielder here purely. This, by the way, this is just the first steps. Whether you do this in Sorare or you're doing it in SorareData, this is only the first steps because there might be reasons behind why a player is cheap, which we'll come to in a moment. So I want to find a player that's available for Challenger Europe for that game week. And I'm going to leave the age open because it doesn't really fuss me. I'm not married to these cards, as I've said before. I will be able to sell them if I want to. And again, you could do this for whichever scarcity. So let's just say we're looking for a card for Cap 240. We've got, I don't know, let's say we've got 48 points available. So you can reduce these, down to a maximum of 48. Games started and games played. Now, generally, I want players that are playing all the time, which you do pay a little bit more for. But what I'll often do in here is I'd maybe put that about 75% because it allows for things like, a knock, COVID, different reasons that players aren't playing. You can also adjust your average all-around scores, your decisive scores, things like that. What I like to do with this, I like to put in the last 5 score as well. So although the average is for the last 15 is under 48, I want a player who's maybe in a wee bit of form. So let's just change that up to, let's say, 50. And I want him to have played, all but maybe one at least of his last 5 games. So I'm going to go down to cards. And in here, you could search by the different scarcity. So let's say I'm looking for a limited one. You could then search by floor price, which is obviously the cheapest price on the market, or the most recent average. So that might be 3 days, depending on the card. And usually it's 3 days. If it's a card that's not been traded much, it could be 7 days, could be longer, if there's maybe not as much of them. So let's go by the market price. I'm looking for one that is, let's go 005, which is about £7.50, give or take. It's probably closer to £7.20 at the moment, but let's just say £7.50. You can also search by that in your pound or your euro or dollars. I should have just changed that, but there we go. So I'm going to then sort that by my last 5. You do have various options there, last 5, last 15. I'm going to do that. Let's see what it brings up. So we have 8 results for that game week. And, we've got Russian League, we've got Austrians, and we have, again, more Russians, Belgians, Austrians, and a Premier League player from Scotland as well. So that brings up a selection of players from there. Now, what I would then do is, obviously, I'm looking at underneath here, it shows you, they've paid 100% of the last 5, 93% of the last 15, and 98% of the last 40. So that is somebody who's playing every single week, pretty much, bar one game, which I believe he was ill. Manfred Fischer, Austria Vienna. We're going to hone in on him because of his price value and things like that. And I'm going to look at him because look at this. He's played 100% of the last 40 games. Mr. Reliable. He plays every game. Last 15 and last 40 scores are 48 and the last 5 of 53. His price on the market, 0.0017, which is what's that? That's about £2.50. And his rare price is actually quite intriguing to me as well. It's about 0.035. It's about 50 quid. So that, to me, is actually a player I'm going to go and have a proper look at here. So this is how I would find my players. And then what I'm going to go and do is I would then look on a couple of sources. I would look at Transfer Market and I'm going to look at SofaScore. There are plenty other options here, but these are ones that I use regularly. So let's look up Fisher. Sometimes you have to be very specific with your searches. I have muted this tab, so if any random videos decide to start playing, as you can see in the bottom right, it does this all the time. But I do have it muted, so hopefully they don't come on and spoil the audio. But let's have a look at Manfred Fischer here. So we are looking at a player who is the captain for his team. This can do one. I'll close that. There we go. He's the captain. You can see the captain's armband there. Tells you a little bit more about him, age, position, that kind of thing. Usually during the season, you will also see a little bit here, which will say that, he's played 15 out of 15 games, shows you the number percentage of minutes, everything like that. You've got his main positions here. He plays attacking mid. Now, I do know that because it's a player that I've had. He's just signed a new contract on the 9th of May. You can see that down here. These are the key things I look for. I want to see somebody, if they've just signed a contract and they've been at the club for a little while. It's a lengthy contract, a 4-year contract. This is a player who's going to be playing. As I say, captain as well, 27 years of age. It's a player that would very much interest me as being a signing. So down here shows you a little bit about previous clubs, yada yada. And then overall, here's his career history. But what I'm going to do on this one, just to let you see, again, guys, these are things I do. This might take a little bit of time just to get everything through. It might be a bit of a longer video, but it is worth it because this is the part I'm talking about when I say do your own research. So you'll find your player, but then you've got to go and dig a little bit and find, is there a reason this player's cheap? Is it just because it's an unfashionable league? Could well be. Is it because potentially there's an injury that you don't know about? Could well be. So this is where you'd want to go and have a look at these things. So here you can see last season, 23-24, played in the qualifiers in Europe, played in the Conference League, played in the Bundesliga, played 32 games in the Bundesliga, 2 goals, 3 assists. You can see his number of minutes there. You can see the playoffs, all this kind of thing. That all around there is what it is, what I'm going to look at and see. And then this bit here, look at the positions this lad's playing. Utility player or what? Attacking mid, he's played 64 games in his career, 15 goals, 4 assists. When he plays right mid, 60 games, 13 goals, 10 assists. All the way down. He plays a lot of positions, this lad. One that I might try and pick up before the video goes live. But yeah, cracking player. Now, what you can also do is you can go and look on SofaScore. The reason I do this on here, I mistyped there. Manfred Fischer, there he is here. It gives you a little bit of a blurb, but look, this has last season's stats all here. Heat map, you can see exactly where he is on the park at all times. From those 32 games, he started all of them. He played an average of 89 minutes per game, 2 team of the weeks, 2 goals. You can see all these different stats down here. And some of the things you might want to look for on Sorare, big chances created, that kind of thing. Didn't have as many as I'm sure he did in previous seasons when I had him. But look down here, interceptions per game, tackles per game. You can see things like duels won. He wins about 50% of his duels. These are the things you need to look at, in terms of what points you're realistically going to get. Now, obviously, you can see that on Sorare and SofaScore in terms of his longer term last 15, but this gives you a good snapshot of really how this player's performing. It may actually show, they've played a friendly already against Austria Vienna, against Galatasaray, my bad. Usually it highlights the last game, which it has done here. You can click on the lineups, have a wee look, see, did he start? Did he? He did. He was playing as one of the front 3. According to SofaScore, that could be completely inaccurate. But there we go. You're able to see on there. It's just a really good way to go and back up what you're looking at. You then might want to go into Twitter, which I do quite often, go onto Twitter and search a player's name and then use Google Translate. Go into Google, search for the player, click on news. It'll often bring up a lot of kind of either German-based or Austrian-based items. You might have to translate them, but usually your browser will have an option to automatically translate that article into English so that you could see it, or whichever language you're speaking. And I just think these are the great things that you could use to go and research this player as thoroughly as you can. Anytime you're spending your money, if you're a low-end player playing on limiteds, and this card's going to cost you $250, but you've only got a total budget of, say, £10, £20, that's a significant chunk of your budget to put in to a player that you're then, you're buying blindly almost, because somebody on Facebook or Twitter or wherever has recommended this player. And I honestly, the biggest thing I could say is do your own research, even the players that I'm recommending. If you go and watch my videos from 2 or 3 weeks ago, things have changed. So you might want to then see, all of a sudden, why is this player cheaper than it was in Chris's video? And you can go and have a look and see the reason is he's fallen out with the manager, he's been transferred, been released, out on loan to a club that's not scoring. These are the things that you can then go and have a look at for yourself. I never take anybody's word on face value for anything, regardless who they are. Even if it's, Russ, Scotland Sorare, giving me advice on a player, I will then still go and back that up with my own research, just because, I'm spending my money. I'm not spending anybody else's money. So when you're buying players with your hard-earned money, we're all working hard for our money. You know, unless you're a millionaire that's won the lottery, in which case, drop in my DMs. I could try and help you out with some players. But in all seriousness, we're all working hard. Money is tight. So you don't want to be frivolously spending it on things that are just not worth it. So these are the things that I would then go and do. I would then obviously go and see what the player is on the market. So let's have a look at Manfred Fischer. I might actually send a trade offer whilst I'm on here because I've got Josh Cullen, which is coming in about the same value. And the reason I might look at swapping him is just because Josh Cullen isn't Champion Europe. So he's Champion Europe as opposed to Challenger. So I might have a look at that to see if this might be something that's worth me trading out of, to see if I can maybe get a deal. So I'll have a wee look at doing that. But that's it, guys. You can see here, he's looking about 50 quid, and Fisher's looking about, Cullen's looking about the same sort of price. And yeah, I may well send out a trade offer here. And check my gallery when you come back to have a look at the video. I hope you've made it through, because I do think it is key to see the different things. Whether you're a new user, an experienced user, somebody's played the game that long that they forget the basics, and it happens to us all. But I bought a card blindly because it was one I was looking for. I seen one go up cheap on the market. I snapped it up, and it was because there was an offer from a non-scoring league for the player who had been accepted. It happens. So do your own research before you press that buy button, or before you send that offer. Do your own research to find out why is that player cheap, or as just to make sure you've covered your bases and you're happy with the player that you're buying. Just as I was happy as Martin Boyle looks when I picked him up. It's one of these things. So thanks to everybody that's subscribed to the channel. After the video at the weekend, I jumped up another, I think, 15 subscribers. So thank you very much. If you're watching these videos and you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It helps build the channel because the videos will appear higher in feeds, appear as the next to watch, that kind of thing. So it does help the channel grow. I apologize for the adverts, but I don't apologize for the adverts at the same time. I'm trying to build up, a base, and I can, so when I'm doing these videos, I'm actually getting a little bit of a return because I'm not asking anybody to pay for these. I'm doing them for free, but if I can get the advertising revenue back out of them, then happy days. If you've any ideas for upcoming videos, drop me a DM. You can find me on Twitter at Sorare on the Budget. If you're brand new to Sorare and this video has maybe helped you figure it out a little bit more and to take the plunge, you could do so on my link. It's in the description below. It's on the screen, SorareOnTheBudget.com. Takes you to the Sorare website where you can sign up and get started on your journey. So with that, guys, thank you so much. I apologize if it doesn't sound quite as crisp as usual. I don't have my mic. I'm doing this on my lunch break at work so that I can try and keep some content coming out, because trying to get it done at home is impossible sometimes. So thank you so much, guys. Take care, and I will speak to you all again very, very soon.